difficult to prove. But what I think you can demonstrate is over the last 50, 60 years, through lobbying and demonstrable means, corporations have had more and more ability to exert influence and downright control government policy, regardless of which party is in power. And then a crisis event took place, and the momentum that carried it through, like governments the governments like control. That's what governments are about, is authority. But big corporations like profit. That's what they're about. And those two things came together. So that the solution that was suggested is, well, we can exert control through lockdowns and potentially coming as close as, damn it, to mandating medicines. They can benefit the indemnity that they were granted. It was a kind of a perfect storm and perfect revelation. We spoke to a person, I don't think you've had him on because I'm sure I would have been aware if you had, this guy, Martin Gurri, who was a CIA operative who wrote a book called The Revolt of the Public. And he said he was a CIA analyst in 2001. And in 2001, there was as much information published that year as in all human history up to that point. And then 2002 it doubled again. And he said when you look at those analytics on a screen, it looks like a tidal wave. And he said that image stayed with him, and he recognized that power was going to alter radically, because if information can be created and exchanged that quickly, centralized authority is going to be massively challenged. Either the way that we govern communities and nations is going to radically alter, with more power being devolved, with more democracy, with more ability to run your own communities, with more feedback and communities, such as the online world is starting to suggest, communities forming around subjects or individuals or figures or ideologies, or, and this seems to be what's happening, centralized authority is going to double down, look for ways to smear dissenters, censor, create new categories like misinformation, disinformation, suddenly find acceptable views of 5-10 years ago are now not acceptable and are banned, tolerance somehow decreasing under the veil of increasing tolerance, literal Orwellianism, them changing the meaning of words, going back, editing books, stuff that we've seen in dystopian sci-fi actually happening. Martin Gurri, the CIA analyst, offers us that the reason that's happening is because there's a recognition that centralized authority models cannot operate. The elites cannot govern the planet in the same typical way that they've been able to, say, from the 50s or whenever. I'm not an expert in this kind of stuff. But he said, unless we're going to lose things that he considers worth saving, because this guy, Martin Gurri, he's not like a radical person. He likes liberal democracy. He's a first-generation immigrant, I think, from Cuba in this country, worked at the CIA. He's not some sort of pot-smoking radical. He's like a person, but he was saying that what's happened is they've not been able to acknowledge the way that the world has changed. It's changed in an unprecedented way. The first observable sign of one-off being Napster, the second one, the Arab Spring, the Occupy movement. They've not recognized that now there's a different conversation. And then, you can add you actually to that, because what happened with now what we'll do is we'll shut this geezer down. But they couldn't, because the economics of that, we were already too big in the space for that to happen. So they don't know how to. He said what's going to happen is either new elites will emerge that understand how technology works, and I guess that's why we're seeing, have seen the rise of social media, the amount of power those big tech companies have, their ability to evade taxation, the degree to which the Twitter files revealed they work closely with deep state operatives to a point that we just wouldn't know had Elon Musk not made those moves.
I think they're also operating with very crude tools currently that will soon change with AI.
Right.
I think AI is going to completely shift the narrative, and then from then on, you're going to be dealing with disinformation on just a vast scale of impossible to decipher. You're not going to, I watched a video today of Joe Biden talking about some girl's ass. It wasn't real.
Yeah.
But it's like, here, I'll send it to Jamie so we can play it, because it's so crazy, like what they can do now. It's just, how long before it's absolutely impossible to detect? How long before you have no idea what's real and what's not real? It's not that long from now. And they'll be able to, the people that own these enormous tech companies will be in cahoots with government like they are now, that, they censor narratives, they demonetize people that talk about COVID in the wrong way or even at all. They're going to do that same kind of thing, and they're going to do that same kind of thing with whatever they want to highlight, like any narrative they want to highlight. And you like, as a consumer, as a person on the outside that's just watching things, it's going to be so confusing. And there's going to be narratives that, like, if you're an inclusive person that believes in equity and fairness for all, you'll believe this narrative. And then if you're a person who believes in liberty and the First Amendment and the Second Amendment and to protect our borders, you're going to believe that narrative. And then they're going to feed it with fake news and fake video and fake voices. Here, I'll play this, Jamie. Here you go. when you see these things and they're crude now, like you know it's fake because you know the actual recordings of Joe Biden talking, but how long before it's a video that's completely indiscernible? You're not going to be able to know if it's fake or real. You can have him doing things that he's never done before.
Fucking booty I've ever seen. God damn, that shit was huge. I could barely believe my eyes, man. I had to cool myself off with a chocolate chip ice cream cone from Ben & Jerry's. Shit was actually fire. No pun intended. My buddy Kevin from the Secret Service then brought me to the White House to sign some more shit. It was probably more money for Zelensky in Ukraine, but I didn't really give a fuck. Remember to keep it real and vote for me in 2024. Swipe it.
Yeah.
How wild is that?
Yeah, as has been commented, I wish he was this competent. The most alarming thing is that that's a really cohesive sentence from Joe Biden. He's got a bit sexist, but his faculties are in order.
It's bizarre how far he's deteriorated. And when I was talking about it during the election, and people were like, I was actually talking about it with Eric Weinstein, and he was like, I can't vote for Biden. And he goes, I can't vote for Trump. And I go, I would vote for Trump before I'd vote for Biden. Just because I think with Biden, like, he's gone. Like, he's gone. You're going to be relying on his cabinet. And I knew his cabinet would be this fucking sideshow of diversity, and which is exactly what it is. I mean, that one person who stole all the women's clothes, that Sam Brinton, we highlighted on the podcast yesterday, like, that's a diversity hire. You just said, oh, look at this. A man who dresses like a woman and has a beard and a mustache, but also wears lipstick